Assalamualaikum and greetings to Dr. Nulaidi. We are from Group 5. My name is Alif Aikar bin Kamrul Zaman. My metric number is 289978. And today we would like to present about financial analysis on company HB Global Limited and Howah Genting Berhad. So what is financial analysis? Financial analysis is a process of evaluating a business's mostly related financial transaction based on their financial statements to determine their overall performance and overall financial condition. So in this study, we would like to cover four types of ratio. We have current ratio, activity ratio, profitability ratio, and leverage ratio. I will pass the next part to my fellow groupmate.
A very good afternoon to Doctor. My name is Janani Shankar and my metric card number is 285341. For the introduction part, Howah Genting Berhad, Malaysia-based investment holding company which is engaged primarily in the provision of management services. Howah Genting Berhad was founded on 1993, having already establishment as a Bursa Malaysia main market listed company, with finger in the pies in the investment of SWG, Capital, SDN BHT, Healthcare, Manufacturing and Travel, and also the industries. Howah Genting Berhad Group is constantly on the lookout for more promising opportunities to expand further its business to other industries and to grow the business over time. Referring to its subsidiary group, PT Howah Genting, they are mainly manufacture wire cable, molded power, supply coal sets and also cable.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Syafiqah binti Zaini and my metric number is 284484 and I will presenting about Howah Genting Berhad mission and vision. And I will go first with the mission of this company. This company mission is to exceed the requirement and expectation of customer, champion the welfare and well-being of employees, and to ensure the continual growth and evaluation for stakeholders. While their vision is to supply customer globally with a diverse portfolio of high-quality products, they aim to be globally recognized supplier of raw material, semi-finished and finished products.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. My name is Nur Shanatul Hazra binti Muhammad Daim and my metric number is 284839. I will briefly describe about HB Global Limited Company. HB Global Limited was incorporated in Singapore under the Singapore Companies Act as a private limited company in 2006. Then in 2010, the company was listed in Bursa Malaysia as a public limited company. Actually, this company is focusing on the food processing industry, which is specializing in the research of wide range of ready-to-serve foods that include market research to suit their local living style. So they comprise various ready-to-serve foods which are pre-cooked, frozen or fresh vegetables and also pre-cooked garment meat that was for convenient storage, easy preparation and quick consumption.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nurul Fazilawati binti Samasuddin, matrix number 285611. I will present about the vision and mission of HB Global Limited. So, vision of HB Global Limited is to become one of the most innovative investors of new mechanical device to support industry and business. For mission of HB Global Limited is to offer our consumers everywhere across the world with the Tremendous food, products and service as well as innovative approach.
A liquidity ratio is a metric that reveals how much cash a company has hand to cover invoices and also debitors. Companies can use variety of liquidity ratio calculation to examine their various assets and also liability according to James 2011. Current ratio is calculated by current asset divided by the current liabilities. The current ratio is the easiest one calculated to comprehend the liquidity ratio as well. The current assets and the current liability line items is a company balance sheet is immediately accessible to everybody. The current ratio is calculated by dividing current assets by the current liabilities also. The current ratio is being used to determine how cash flow frame is. It allows access to company's short-term financial strength as well. The higher the ratio, the more stable the business. The lower the ratio, the greater the risk of the company's liquidity as well, says by Lola 2005. Current ratio for the Howah Genting Berhad is 1.35. It also known that the higher the current ratio, the more liquid firm will be considered to be. Based on the calculation, Howah Genting Berhad companies current ratio is 1.35 as well. The calculated current ratio shows that management was efficient in meeting the creditors' demands. It also gives understanding of working capital management requirement of the company as well. Howah Genting Berhad company quick ratio is 0.48. A quick ratio of 1.1 is also indicate the firm is able to pay dividends on the time, which is massive advantage because everyone wants their money on that time. When deciding whether or not to invest in a company, potential investor will look at the quick ratio as well. The high fast of ratio also suggests companies are well prepared to adapt to the changed operational conditions which attract investors as well. Global Limited company's current ratio is 1.09 because of the current assets is more than current liabilities, so it shows that the company has the financial resources to remain solvent in the short term as well. Based on the quick ratio for the HB Global Limited, the company's quick ratio was recorded as 1.01. That ratio is more than ideal ratio 1 nisbah 1, so it reflects that company is better able to meet the obligans through the current assets as well.
Now I will continue with activity ratio. Activity ratio is a financial indicator that shows how effectively a company is generating revenue and cash from its balance sheet assets. On the other hand, it also can be used to track a company's financial success over multiple accounting periods in order to identify trends. Activity ratio are divided into three parts, which are inventory turnover, that is 2 measures how the inventory is being managed efficiently. The second is total assets turnover, that is 2 measures the value of sales compared to its assets. And the third is account receivable turnover, that is 2 measures how well the company collect debt from its customers. So I will describe about activity ratio for Howell Genting Berhad. The first inventory turnover is 1.63 that can get by divided the cost of goods sold, which is 375.462, and average inventory, which is 229,646. The 1.63 represents as the number of times an item of inventory managed to be replaced. Next, for total assets turnover, it can get with net sales, which is 392,121 divided by average total assets, which is 135,655, and it gets 2.9. It indicates that each ringgit of assets can earn 2.9 ringgit in revenue. The last, for account receivable turnover, it gets 23.15 by divided the net sales, which is 392,121, and average trade receivable, which is 2,937.5. So it shows that the company managed to collect its short-term debt 23.15 times during the given year. So next, I will explain about the activity ratio of HP Global Limited. First, for inventory turnover, HP Global Limited get 9.43. It get with the cost of goods sold, which is 97,200 divided the average inventory, which is 10,312.5. The value show that the company can replace 9.43 times in their inventory into sales during the time given. Okay, for the total assets turnover, HP Global Limited get 0.22 by divided the net sales and the average total asset, which are 97,880 by 450,497.5. So it indicates that the company can generate for every 1 ringgit of assets get earns 0.22 ringgit in revenue. And the last is account receivable turnover for HP Global Limited. It calculated with net sales, which is 97,880 divided the average trade receivable, which is 53,289. So it get 1.84 for the account receivable turnover. That value shows that the company is able to collect its receivable 1.84 times in the given year.
So next, profitability ratio of Hoa Genting Berhad in HP Global Limited. Profitability ratio, a financial ratio used by analysts and investors to quantify and evaluate a company capacity to create income compared to sales, balance sheet assets, operational costs, and shareholders' equity over a certain time period. Profitability ratio have two, which is profit margin on sales and return on assets. So let's see the profitability ratio Hoa Genting Berhad. Profit margin on sales, the formula is net income divided by net sales, which is negative 23696 divided by 392121 equal to negative 0.06. Negative 0.06 could be the natural consequences of industry-wide or macroeconomic difficulties beyond the control of a company management. So next is return on assets. The formula is net income divided by average total assets, which is negative 23696 divided by 135655 equal to negative 0.17. Falling ROS could indicate oncoming financial difficulties. Moreover, Hoa Genting Berhad was recorded negative 0.17 in return on sale in return on assets in 2021. Next is profitability ratio of HP Global Limited. For profit margin on sales, in net income divided by net sales, which is negative 45290 divided by 97880 equal to negative 0.46. When manufacturing expense exceeds entire income for a given period, company will get a negative profit margin. Next is return on assets, net income divided by average total assets, which is negative 45290 divided by 450497.5 equal to negative 0.10. This company has negative return on assets. This suggestion that firm is unable to acquire or manage its assets effectively enough to produce profit.
Next, I will explain about leverage ratio. Before that, I will give an explanation about leverage ratio. Leverage ratio is one of any numerous financial metrics that examines how much capital is provided by debt or evaluate a company capacity to satisfy their financial commitment. In leverage ratio, it has two types of ratio, which is debt to asset ratio and debt to equity ratio. I will go first with the calculation of debt to asset ratio for Hoa Genting Berhad. It's got 0.61 from the divided by the total liability of this company, which is 110,811, and the total asset of this company, which is 166,065. It means that this company has more asset than debt. Next, I will go with the calculation of debt to equity ratio for this company. 1.70 got from the divided by the total debt of this company, which is 110,811, and the total equity for this company, which is 16,254. 1.70 determine how much leverage its company used to grow their business. Next, I will go with the calculation of debt to asset ratio for HB Global Limited. 0.30 got from the divided by the total liability for HB Global Limited's company, which is 123,969, and the total asset for HB Global Limited's company, which is 490,760. So this company has 0.30 for total debt to asset ratio. It means that this company performing well. Lastly, I will go with the calculation of debt to equity ratio. The total of debt to equity ratio for HB Global Limited is 0.42. It's less than 1, so it means that the total asset is more fully supported by the equity.
Hello, my name is Alifai bin Kamrul Zaman. My metric number is 289978, and I will be comparing the financial ratios between the two companies, Huwah Genting Berhad and HB Global Limited. So to start off, I will be comparing the liquidity ratios, which we have current ratios and quick ratios. So for both of these ratios, we have a theoretical assumption. We assume that what if the short-term debts were to be due by today, will the companies be able to repay back in such amount of time? So from what we can see here, Huwah Genting Berhad having 1.35 current ratio, which we can interpret it as they have higher ability in repaying back the short-term debts by liquidating all of their current ratios in a day. Compared to HB Global Limited, they have 1.09 current ratio, which is not a bad number, but Huwah Genting Berhad did slightly better in performance. So for quick ratio, it's still the same concept, but we exclude the inventory from calculation, as we assume that the inventories are very time consuming in transforming into cash. So from what we can see here, Huwah Genting Berhad having 0.48 quick ratio, meanwhile HB Global Limited with 1.01 quick ratios. Now I will compare the activity ratio. So for the inventory turnover, we have HB Global Limited that has sold their inventories as much as 9.43 times during the year in average. Meanwhile for Huwah Genting Berhad, they have sold their inventories as much as 6.54 during the year. Moving on to total asset turnover, we have Huwah Genting Berhad having the ratio of 2.9 compared to HB Global Limited, which did quite poorly with 0.22 of ratio. So for account receivable turnover, we can see that Huwah Genting Berhad has left such a huge gap between the two companies. They have collected as much as 23.15 times of debts during the year. We can see that they have such a good, reliable and trustworthy debtors compared to HB Global Limited, which only collected around 1.84 times in average during the year. Moving on, profitability ratio came out as negative number, as both of the companies has incurred a net loss during the financial year. So for profit margin on sales, Huwah Genting Berhad has incurred a negative 0.06, meanwhile for HB Global Limited has obtained a ratio of negative 0.46. For return on assets, Huwah Genting Berhad has incurred a negative 0.17, and for HB Global Limited, they have incurred a negative 0.1. And finally, we have leverage ratio. As you can see here, Huwah Genting Berhad seems to be more dependent on debts to finance both of their equity and assets compared to HB Global Limited. As you can see on the bar chart on your right, HB Global Limited tend to have a lesser amount of ratio compared to Huwah Genting Berhad. Well, it is advisable for Huwah Genting Berhad to cut out its debts, as it will be very risky for their overall business in the future. And that is all from us, Group 5. I hope we have given such an informative and useful input regarding the financial analysis of both companies, Huwah Genting Berhad and HB Global Limited. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my fellow groupmates for participating in this study, and we would also like to thank Dr. Nolali for sharing such knowledge, as it won't be possible without your contribution. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay safe.